The night air was colder than usual, a biting chill that crept beneath her jacket as Lily stepped off the connecting bus. Her feet felt heavy after the long day at college, and she was exhausted, but the promise of being home soon kept her moving forward. The bus stand loomed ahead, dimly lit by a single flickering street lamp. The usual hustle of commuters was absent. There were no other people in sight. It felt wrong, almost unnatural. Lily checked the time on her phone. 11:56 p.m. Her stomach tightened.
The last bus should be here soon. But what if I missed it?
She had been in such a hurry to catch the connecting bus, and now, standing alone in the cold night, that fear took root in her chest. She scanned the empty street, hoping to see the headlights of the approaching bus. But there was nothing, just the silence. Her heart began to race as she glanced over at the small bench by the side of the platform. It seemed like the only place where she could wait in peace. So she walked over, her footsteps echoing in the stillness. Sitting down, she hugged her back closer to her body, trying to stave off the cold creeping into her bones.
What if the bus has already passed? What if I'm stuck here?
The thought gnawed at her. She pulled her sleeve down over her watch, the cold metal against her wrist making her flinch. 11:56 p.m. 2 minutes. The bus had to be here any minute now. But then, just as she was about to check her phone again, she heard the shuffle of footsteps behind her. Her heart skipped a beat. The road was empty moments ago. She turned her head slowly, her stomach churning when she saw a man approaching. He was middle-aged, dressed in a dark coat that looked worn and heavy, his face flushed and his movements unsteady. He staggered slightly, and Lily could smell the strong, sour scent of alcohol in the air before he even spoke. "Where are you going?" His voice was slurred, and his gaze swayed slightly as he stopped a few feet away from her. His eyes locked on hers with a gaze that didn't seem entirely focused. "I'm just waiting for the bus. It'll be here soon." Lily's heart raced. There was no one else in sight, just the two of them. She didn't want to seem rude, but she also wanted him to leave her alone. The middle-aged man said something to her. She looked at him with a silent gaze, and as she was wondering of what he had just said, the man left. She had had no clue of what he had just said to her. The bus headlights finally appeared, cutting through the darkness.
I think that's my bus,
she said quickly, standing up, her voice shaking slightly. She began to walk briskly toward the street, her legs moving faster as if to escape the lingering feeling of unease that the man had left in her chest. As she reached the bus, the doors opened with a soft hiss, and Lily stepped inside. The warmth of the bus a comforting contrast to the cold air outside. She didn't look back. The sight was a bit strange for her, as the whole bus was empty, but she pulled the courage and got into it. She didn't want to stay for long in that lonely bus stand. She chose a seat in the empty bus and sat down. As the bus pulled away from the empty stand, she let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Her heart was still pounding in her chest, the strange meeting with the middle-aged man still fresh in her mind. As the bus rumbled on through the night, the bus rolled on through the mist-shrouded streets, its tires humming an eerie rhythm as the girl, her heart pounding with anxiety, stared at the back of the driver's head. She had been on this bus for what felt like hours now, but the roads were unfamiliar. The night was too quiet, and the more she tried to settle, the more unsettling it became. She was the only passenger, or so she thought. The bus seemed empty, save for the driver, a man whose movements were mechanical, almost too stiff. His face, obscured in the dim light, revealed nothing. No expression, no recognition.
Excuse me, you missed my stop.
Her voice echoed in the stillness of the bus, but the driver didn't answer. Suddenly, the hairs on the back of her neck stood up. The air grew thick, and the chill that wrapped around her wasn't just from the cold night air. It was something far more sinister. She turned around, her eyes scanning the dimly lit bus. That's when she noticed them. At first, she thought it was her mind playing tricks. Figures slumped in the seats, their bodies still, their eyes blank, their faces pale. Ghostly shadows sitting in the darkness. She stumbled backward, her heart hammering in her chest. The bus, the driver, the passengers. None of it was real. Not in the way she had assumed, as she spun back to the driver.
Who are they? What is this? Why won't you stop the bus?
A guttural laugh rumbled from the driver's throat, low and menacing. His eyes didn't move, but his voice carried the weight of something ancient, something wrong. They are the lost. You'll join them soon. Her breath caught in her throat as she took a step back.
No, I don't belong here.
Her voice cracked, desperation creeping in as she fought to stay grounded.
Please, I just want to go home.
The bus rumbled on, its wheels screeching as it picked up speed, twisting down a road that shouldn't have been there. It was as if the world around her was shifting, folding into itself. The night was swallowing everything whole. And then she saw it. A reflection, her own face in the window. But it wasn't right. There was no reflection. She wasn't there. Her heart skipped a beat. She stumbled back. The passengers, ghosts of the past, were staring at her now, their hollow eyes following her every move. She screamed, trying to open the door, banging on the windows, but nothing worked. The voice that came from the driver was no longer human. It was something deeper, darker, something that crawled beneath the skin. You should have listened, he rasped. You shouldn't have gotten on. Her mind flashed back to the bus stop, the last moment of normalcy she'd had. The drunk middle-aged man had warned her. Beware of which bus you get into. Don't get into the wrong bus. His words echoed in her mind now. Too late. She collapsed to the floor, tears streaming down her face as the weight of her mistake crushed her. The bus was never meant to stop. Not for her. Not for anyone. It had already left the world of the living long ago. The girl realized with a sickening clarity that the driver wasn't the driver at all. The man she had seen earlier, the one who had lived and died on this bus, had long since perished. The demon that now controlled the vehicle was a dark force that had taken over, using the dead to lure in the living. Those who boarded this bus were lost, claimed by a fate they could never escape.